I have a question for you. When you're taking pictures with your digital camera, do you like to use the LCD screen or do you prefer to use the viewfinder, both found on the back of the camera? Now there are pros and cons of using each, but what are the pros and cons and how can I use them to take better photos? Welcome to the Photo Genius channel. Hi, Paul here from Photo Genius. Welcome to my channel where I post regular photography tutorials, all designed to help you get more from your digital camera so you can take better photos. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Now, in the days before digital cameras, we took pictures with cameras like this, which used to belong to my granddad. This is a film SLR camera. It looks much like a digital camera, but when you turn it round, no LCD screen. So when taking a picture, you would look through the viewfinder on the back of the camera. Now, as well as not having an LCD screen to compose and see your photo in advance of taking it, of course, when you've taken the picture, unlike today, you can't see the results straight away. Instead, you have to finish the film, take it out, get it processed, and get your pictures printed. Now with digital cameras, of course, things have changed. We now have this very convenient LCD screen on the back of the camera, which means if I press the playback button, I can see my images. Now, not only that, if I press the live view button, I can now use the live view and the screen to compose and take a picture as an alternative to looking through the viewfinder. Now what I've found to be really interesting when I'm running my photography courses and workshops here in Brisbane is that I often meet people who love using the viewfinder but haven't used the screen. Some of them have never turned on the live view function. By the way, in this video I'm going to show you how to do that. Equally, of course, I meet people that love using the live view function on the LCD screen and don't use the viewfinder. Now I believe you should be using both. So in this video, I want to talk about the pros and cons of each. Plus, as usual, I've got lots of tips for you to help you get better results from your digital camera and take better photos. And I've got a bonus tip at the end of the video, so make sure you stick around for that. So let's begin by talking about the viewfinder. Now this I showed you earlier is my granddad's old camera. This is a film SLR camera with no screen. So to take a picture with this camera, I pop it up to the eye and I look through the viewfinder. And looking through the viewfinder, I'm able to see through the lens in real time because there's a mirror inside this camera that reflects light up through and out the back of the camera. Now, with digital cameras, like this one, this particular one is a Canon, there is also a mirror inside this camera. So when I look through the viewfinder, even if this camera is turned off, I'm able to see through the lens. Because again, there's a mirror that bounces the light back and up out the back of the viewfinder. So to begin, I want to quickly show you the role that the mirror plays. Inside all digital cameras, we have a sensor. Now for you to be able to see through the viewfinder inside a DSLR camera, you will also find a mirror and a pentaprism. Note how the mirror is in front of the sensor. Now as light passes through the lens, it hits the mirror, which diverts the light up to the pentaprism and then out of the viewfinder. Now when you take a picture, the mirror moves up and out of the way so the light can now reach the sensor and the camera can record an image or video. So as you can see with a camera like this, when you're taking a picture, the mirror has to move up and then down. And that partly contributes to the sound of the camera. When you take a picture, that's the sound of the shutter opening and closing, but also the mirror moving up and then down back to its original position. Now this leads us nicely into mirrorless cameras. So with a mirrorless camera, when you look through the viewfinder, you're actually looking at a small screen or a smaller version of the larger LCD screen on the back of the camera. And this is called an EVF or electronic viewfinder. Now with a mirrorless camera, of course, there's no mirror and there's no mechanical parts required to move a mirror up and down. And for that reason, mirrorless cameras can often be made smaller. And this is one of the appealing factors of mirrorless cameras. Some of them are very small and very compact, making them ideal for the traveling photographer. Now I've got a great tip for you if you like using the viewfinder on the back of your camera. Did you know that you can adjust the viewfinder to suit your eyes and your vision? This is going to be particularly useful for those of you that wear glasses and may not want to wear glasses when taking photos, but I think everybody should test and try this out first. Now you can do this very easily by adjusting a tiny little dial on the back of the camera. Let me show you how it works. Now when taking a photo, look through the viewfinder and you will see something like this. Now don't worry at this stage if your subject looks out of focus. Instead, concentrate on the numbers that appear in the display. If these look soft and blurry, then your viewfinder almost certainly needs adjusting. So all you need to do is turn the tiny little dial next to the viewfinder. As you do, you should notice the numbers getting sharper, and when they're at their absolute sharpest, it's done. Then you can focus on your subject and move on to taking your shot. Now call me old school, but to me one of the attractions of using the viewfinder is it just feels right. After all, cameras were designed to be used up at the eye. Click. Now I want to talk about live view. Now I often use the screen if I'm using the camera on a tripod. Now this might be landscape photography. More recently I've been doing some macro photography. Now if you've yet to use the live view function, let me show you how to turn it on. With most Canon cameras, the live view button is found on the back. Look for a button with a camera icon on it. Press the button to activate the live view, and this means that the camera will now display on the LCD screen what it sees in real time. Pressing the display button on the back of the camera will allow you to change how and what information is displayed on the back of the screen, and here you'll find some handy features like histogram, for example. Now with many of the Nikon cameras, there's a lever marked LV on the top of the camera. Pull it towards you to turn live view on, and then it's exactly the same as with the Canon camera. You're seeing the world in real time via the LCD. Now you'll also find on the back of the camera an info button. This allows you to change what information is displayed on the back of the screen. This particular camera has grid view. This can be useful for composition and keeping horizons horizontal. To turn live view off, just pull the lever towards you again. Now to get the perfect composition and the perfect shot, I have no problems with laying on the ground if need be, but sometimes it can be a little bit mucky. Now of course if you're using the live view, all you got to do is crouch down, and this is even easier if you're lucky enough to have a flip out screen. So here's a good example of where live view may have the edge over using the viewfinder. Holding a camera out at arm's length is not a steady way to hold a camera and can lead to blurry photos as the camera records your movements. This is made even worse when using a larger and heavier telephoto lens. Looking through the viewfinder and tucking your arms in against your chest is a much more stable and, in my view, a more natural way to use a camera. Now there's two common problems when using live view, particularly outside on a fairly bright day like today. This screen can actually be quite hard to see, and the sunnier it gets, the harder it gets to see. Problem number two, and this is a bit of a personal one, is I'm having to wear my glasses because if I take them off, the back of this camera will look quite out of focus. But I can actually solve both of these problems by putting the camera up to my eye and using the viewfinder. Plus, because I've adjusted the viewfinder to suit my eyes, I covered this just a moment ago, I don't have to wear my glasses. Now I'm often taking photos in monochrome, which is black and white. Here I've got a Nikon DSLR camera. This is the Nikon D3500, and I've set it to monochrome. Now if I look through the viewfinder on the back of the camera, I'm seeing the world in color, and I have to imagine what it will look like in black and white. But using live view, I can actually see the world in black and white. And that's a feature that I absolutely love. Now, a great tip if you've got a mirrorless camera. Did you know that when playing back your images, as well as viewing them on the LCD screen on the back of the camera, you can also play back and view your images via the electronic viewfinder. Now, I think this is really cool and is one of my favorite features on mirrorless cameras. Now there are of course going to be some disadvantages to using the live view function. One of them is battery life. If you're constantly using the screen, your battery will run down significantly quicker than if you're using the viewfinder. And something else you need to watch out for as well is if you're using the live view function, depending on the camera, you may find that the autofocus is really slow and really sluggish. Let me show you. To test this out, I'm going to begin by focusing on my dog. I press the shutter button down and you know when the camera's in focus because the focus area goes green. I'm now going to move the focus area over to a dog toy. Now note the delay from pressing the shutter button to the camera actually focusing. I'm going to go back to the dog. Again, watch when I press the shutter button down. Again, there's a significant delay before the camera finally focuses. Now, slow autofocus needn't be a major concern when you're photographing static subjects like buildings, for example, or maybe landscapes, but it's a major problem if you're photographing a moving subject like sports or wildlife, for example. Now, it has to be said that most of the new mirrorless cameras now have this sorted with amazing features like focus tracking and eye detection. Now, regardless of whether you're using a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, if you're photographing a moving subject, I would highly recommend using the viewfinder over the LCD screen. I believe that you will be able to react, move the camera and track the subject much quicker and much more efficiently with the camera at your eye. Now, whilst I'm still on the subject of focusing, I cannot make a video all about live view without mentioning digital zoom. Digital zoom is a great feature that allows us to zoom in or magnify the subject when using live view. Now, this is a very useful feature for checking focus. Now, because I've recently made a dedicated video all about digital zoom, I'm not going to go into more detail here, but it's worth noting that if you're using a mirrorless camera, digital zoom can be seen through the viewfinder as well as on the LCD screen. Now, to summarize, when choosing whether to use the live view function or look through the viewfinder, the choice of course is completely up to you. But I do think you should make a decision based on what you're photographing. For example, if I'm using the camera handheld, and particularly if I'm shooting a moving subject, I'm almost certainly going to be using the viewfinder. However, if I'm using the camera on a tripod, then I love the convenience of the live view function. Being able to put my camera on a tripod, stand back, look at the screen and see everything, my composition, my exposure, my focusing. I think that's pretty cool, but I do think you should use both. Now, it's nearly the end of the video, but as a special thank you for those of you still watching, here's this week's bonus tip. If your camera uses an SD card, have you ever noticed the tiny switch on the side of the card? Using this, you can lock the contents of the card. Now, this is a great way of protecting those really important images until you've had a chance to store them on an external device like a computer or a hard drive. And that's this week's bonus tip. So before I wrap up, I want to say a big thank you for watching this week's video and for supporting my channel here on YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up because it does help the videos get noticed and in turn that helps my channel grow. If you don't want to miss out on future videos, consider subscribing, and if you've got a question, comment, or you just want to say hi, you'll find the comment section down below the video. All that's left to do is to say again a big thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. See ya. Bye.